The massive warship Dominion's Edge floated through the dark void of space like a sleeping giant. Its hull stretched for over 2 miles, covered in sharp metal spikes and glowing weapon ports. This was not just any ship. This was the flagship of the mighty Valon Empire, and it had never lost a single battle. Captain Vex stood on the bridge, his tall reptilian form casting a long shadow across the command deck. His yellow eyes glowed with pride as he looked out at the stars. Behind him, dozens of alien crew members worked at their stations. Some looked like giant insects with multiple arms, while others appeared to be made of living crystal that sparkled in the dim light. "Sir, we are approaching the outer edge of Sector 847, reported Commander Kale, a 4-armed insectoid from the hive species. His voice buzzed slightly when he spoke, and his compound eyes reflected the light from the control panels. "Good," Vex replied, his forked tongue flicking out briefly. "Another sector to add to our empire. How many star systems does this make?" 847 confirmed conquests, sir," answered Sub-Commander Nex, a tall crystalline being whose body chimed softly when she moved. "No species has ever resisted us for more than 3 days." Vex smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This was exactly what he liked to hear. For over 2,000 years, the Valon Empire had been unstoppable. They were the perfect combination of 3 deadly species. The Valon themselves were master war planners, able to think 10 steps ahead of any enemy. The Hive could coordinate thousands of ships at once, moving like one giant mind, and the Nexari could create energy weapons that could crack planets in, half together. They had crushed every species they had ever met. Some tried to fight back, but it never lasted long. Others begged for mercy, but the Valon Empire showed none. They believed in one simple rule: the strong survive, and the weak serve. "Captain," called out Tech Officer Hex from his station. "Long range sensors are picking up something unusual." Vex turned his attention to the main screen. A small blip appeared at the edge of their sensor range. It was moving slowly through space, clearly not trying to hide. "What is it?" Vex asked, walking closer to get a better look. "Unknown vessel, sir. Small class. Maybe 800 feet long. Very basic design. It appears to be some kind of exploration ship," Hex reported, his fingers dancing over the crystal controls. Vex laughed, a sound like grinding stone. Another primitive species trying to explore the galaxy. How cute. The other officers on the bridge joined in the laughter. They had seen this so many times before. Some young species would build their first real spaceship and think they were ready to explore the universe. They never realized they were swimming with sharks. "Should we destroy it immediately, sir?" asked Commander Kale, already reaching for the weapons controls. No, Vex said, holding up a clawed hand. "Where's the fun in that? Let's have some sport with them first. I want to see how long it takes them to wet themselves when they see us." This was Vex's favorite game. He liked to let new species see the full power of the Valon Empire before crushing them. It made the victory more satisfying, and it sent a clear message to any other species watching. Do not mess with the Valon Empire. Helm, set course for the EI. Unknown vessel. Communications, try to make contact with them. Let's see what these new pets have to say, Vex ordered. The Dominion's Edge changed direction smoothly, its massive engines glowing brighter. Behind it, 11 other Valon warships followed in perfect formation. Each ship was deadly enough to destroy entire fleets, and together they formed the most feared battle group in the galaxy. As they got closer to the unknown ship, the bridge crew began to study it more carefully. The vessel was indeed small compared to their massive warships. Its design looked simple and functional, with no obvious weapons visible. It appeared to be painted in basic white and blue colors, with strange symbols on its hull. "Sir, I'm reading very basic energy signatures from the ship. Minimal shields, basic propulsion, no heavy weapons that I can detect," reported Tech Officer Hex. "Of course not," Vex said with another laugh. "Probably their first time leaving their home planet. I almost feel sorry for them." Almost. The truth was, Vex felt no pity at all. In his long career, he had personally overseen the conquest of over 50 different species. Some had been peaceful explorers just like this one. Others had been warriors, who fought bravely to the end. It made no difference to him. They all ended up the same way, either dead or serving the Valan Empire. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessel," announced Communications Officer Rex. "Put it on screen. Let's see what these creatures look like," Vex said, settling back into his command chair. The main screen flickered and then showed the bridge of the alien ship. Vex leaned forward with interest. The beings on the other ship looked strange. They were about the right size, maybe a little smaller than a Valan. They had smooth skin instead of scales, and hair growing from the tops of their heads. Their eyes were small and round, not at all threatening. "This is Captain Ross of the exploration vessel Wanderer," said the being in the center of the screen. His voice was calm and steady. "We come in peace and wish to establish friendly contact with your species." The bridge of the Dominion's edge erupted in laughter again. Commander Kale was laughing so hard that his insect-like body was shaking. Sub-Commander Nex's crystalline form was chiming like wind chimes in a storm. "Peace," Vex roared with laughter. "They come in peace. Oh, that's rich. That's absolutely rich." He stood up from his chair and walked closer to the screen, looking directly at the alien captain. "Let me explain something to you, little creature. I am Captain Vex of the Valan Empire. We do not make friends. We make conquests. You have exactly one choice: surrender now or be destroyed." The alien captain, Ross, looked back at him without any fear in his eyes. This surprised Vex a little. Most species started panicking by now. "I understand your position," Ross said calmly, "but I'm afraid we cannot surrender. We have our own duties to fulfill." Vex's eyes narrowed. Was this creature actually refusing him? That was unexpected. "Perhaps you don't understand the situation," Vex said, his voice becoming more dangerous. "Communications, show them our full battle group." The screen split to show the exterior view. 12 massive Valan warships surrounded the tiny exploration vessel like wolves circling a rabbit. Each ship bristled with weapons and glowed with deadly energy. "This is the 7th battle group of the Valan Imperial Fleet," Vex announced. "We have conquered 847 star systems. We have destroyed millions of ships. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. Now, do you still refuse to surrender?" Captain Ross looked at the display showing the massive alien warships surrounding his small vessel. For a long moment he was quiet. Then he spoke again, and his voice was still perfectly calm. "We need 24 hours to prepare our people. Will you grant us that time?" Vex was so surprised that he almost laughed again. This primitive creature was asking for time to prepare? What could they possibly prepare that would make any difference? "Very well," Vex said, amused by the alien's pointless request. 24 hours. Use them wisely, little creature. They will be your last." The transmission ended, and the bridge fell silent. Vex looked around at his crew, all of whom seemed as puzzled as he was. "Sir," Commander Kale asked, "what do you think they're going to do in 24 hours? Vex shrugged his massive shoulders. "Probably pray to whatever gods they worship. Maybe write farewell messages to their families. It doesn't matter. In one day they'll either surrender or die." He settled back into his command chair, completely confident in his superiority. After all, what could one small exploration ship possibly do against the might of the Valan Empire? In 24 hours, this would all be over, and they would have another conquered species to add to their collection. What Captain Vex didn't know was that he had just made the biggest mistake of his very long life. Captain Vex paced back and forth on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, his clawed feet clicking against the metal floor. 12 hours had passed since he had given the humans their deadline, and something was bothering him. He couldn't quite figure out what it was. "Commander Kale," he called out to his insectoid second-in-command. "What are the humans doing now?" Kale's compound eyes focused on his monitoring station. "The same things they've been doing for hours, sir. They're checking their systems, talking to their families, holding meetings about their situation." "Show." "Me," Vex ordered. The main screen displayed the interior of the human ship. Captain Ross was sitting in what appeared to be a small conference room with several of his officers. They were looking at data screens and talking quietly. "Can we hear what they're saying?" Vex asked. "Yes, sir," replied Communications Officer Rex. "They're discussing possible escape routes, but they keep concluding that there aren't any. They seem resigned to their fate." Vex nodded, but the feeling of unease remained. In his long career, he had seen many species face their final hours. Some panicked and ran around screaming. Others begged and pleaded for mercy. A few tried desperate attacks that always failed quickly. But these humans were different. They weren't panicking or begging. They weren't even trying to escape. They were just calm. Too calm. "Sir," called out Tech Officer Hex from his station, "I'm monitoring their communications to their home planet. Do you want to hear their latest message?" "Yes, put it on speaker." The bridge filled with Captain Ross's voice as he spoke into his communication device. "This is Captain Ross reporting to Colonial Defense Command. We have encountered a hostile alien empire calling themselves the Valon. 12 warships, advanced technology, overwhelming firepower. They've given us 24 hours to surrender. We won't be doing that. Tell Command we are implementing Protocol 7. Wanderer out." The message ended, and the bridge fell silent. Vex felt his unease grow stronger. "Protocol 7, he muttered. "What do you think that means?" Sub-Commander Nex, her crystalline body chiming softly, looked up from her station. "Probably some kind of procedure for dying with honor, sir. Many primitive species have rituals for facing death." "Maybe," Vex said, but he wasn't convinced. "Rex, have we intercepted any other communications?" "Several, sir. The humans have been sending personal messages to their families. Most of them are strange." "Strange how?" Rex activated his console, and another human voice filled the bridge. It was Lieutenant Blake, the communications officer they had seen earlier. "Hi, Mom, it's me. Just wanted to let you know that we've run into some trouble out here. Nothing we can't handle, but it might be a while before I can call again. Don't worry about me. You know how good I am at my job. Give my love to Dad and tell him his advice about patience finally paid off. I'll see you soon. Love you." Vex frowned. She said nothing we can't handle. That doesn't sound like someone who's about to die. Another message played, this one from Dr. Wells. "Hello, Martha. We've encountered those aliens I told you about in my last letter, the ones from the intelligence reports. They're exactly as described, powerful, but predictable. My research here is almost complete. I think Command will be very interested in what we've learned. Kiss the grandchildren for me." "Intelligence reports?" Vex said, his voice rising. "What intelligence reports? And what research?" Commander Kale's antennae twitched nervously. "Sir, maybe they're just trying to sound brave for their families?" "Play another one," Vex ordered. This time it was Commander Price's voice. "Tom, it's Anna. I can't say much, but the mission is going exactly as planned. The targets have taken the bait perfectly. Tell the kids that Mommy's hunting trip is almost over, and I'll be home with some very interesting stories." The prey walked right into the trap. The bridge erupted in confused chatter. Vex held up a clawed hand for silence, his mind racing. Bait? Trap? Prey? These didn't sound like the words of helpless explorers. "Rex, play that message from their captain again, the one about Protocol 7. They listened to Captain Ross's message again, and this time Vex noticed something he had missed before. The human's voice wasn't scared or desperate. It was calm, professional almost. "Pleased, sir?" Tech Officer Hex called out urgently. "I'm detecting some unusual activity from the human ship." "What kind of activity?" "Their power systems are fluctuating in strange patterns, and I'm picking up some kind of internal construction work. It sounds like they're building something." Vex's eyes narrowed. "Building what?" "I can't tell, sir. The work is happening in sections of their ship that our sensors can't penetrate properly. But there's definitely activity going on that they're trying to hide from us." For the first time since this encounter began, Vex felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Doubt. These humans weren't behaving like any species he had ever conquered. They were too calm, too organized, too prepared. Kale, how many hours are left on their deadline? 11 hours and 37 minutes, sir. Sir, interrupted navigation. Officer Zek, I'm detecting some strange sensor readings from the outer edge of this system. What kind of readings? Faint energy signatures, sir. Very faint. Almost like there are ships out there running on minimum power. Vex felt a chill run down his spine. How many ships? I can't be sure, sir. The readings are too weak. Could be sensor ghosts or space debris or ships trying to stay hidden. Vex finished. The bridge fell silent again. Vex looked around at his crew, seeing his own growing concern reflected in their faces. The insectoid hive officers were clicking their mandibles nervously. The crystalline Nexari were chiming in worried harmonies. Sir, Commander Kale said quietly, should we contact the other ships in our battle group? Yes. Tell them to increase their sensor sweeps. I want to know if there's anything else out there. As Kale sent the orders, Vex continued to pace. Something was very wrong here. These humans weren't acting like prey at all. They were acting like hunters. Sir, incoming message from the human ship, Rex announced. Put it on screen. Captain. Ross appeared again, still sitting calmly in his command chair. Captain Vex, I hope you don't mind, but we've been studying your ships while we wait. Very impressive designs. We've learned quite a lot. You've been studying us? Vex snarled. Of course. We're explorers, after all. It's what we do. We explore. We learn, we report back to our people. Speaking of which, I should mention that our reports have been very detailed. Earth now knows everything about your battle group. Your weapons, your formations, your tactics, even your individual ship designs. Vex felt his blood run cold. What are you saying? Ross smiled for the first time since their conversations began. It wasn't a friendly smile. I'm saying that you might want to reconsider who's hunting whom, Captain Vex. You see, we humans have a saying, know your enemy. And now we know you very well indeed. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, whispered Tech Officer Hex, those energy readings from the outer system, they're getting stronger. Vex stared at the blank screen where Ross's face had been. For 2,000 years, the Valan Empire had been the hunters, and every other species had been their prey. The idea that the roles might be reversed was almost impossible to imagine. But as he looked at the growing concern on his crew's faces and listened to reports of mysterious energy signatures in the darkness of space, Captain Vex began to suspect that the Valan Empire might have finally met their match, and there were still 11 hours left until the deadline. Captain Ross closed the communication channel and turned away from the main screen. The bridge of the Wanderer was much smaller than the alien flagship they had just seen, but every person at their station remained calm and focused. No one was panicking, despite being surrounded by 12 massive warships that could destroy them in seconds. Well, that went about as expected, Ross said quietly, walking over to his command chair. He was a tall man with graying hair and steady blue eyes. His uniform was simple and practical, nothing fancy or decorated. They're exactly like the intelligence reports said they would be. Lieutenant Blake, the ship's communications officer, looked up from her station. She was a young woman with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. Sir, should I send the message to command? Not yet, Ross replied, settling into his chair. Let's see what else we can learn first. These Valans seem to like talking about themselves. On the other side of the bridge, Dr. Wells was studying the alien ships through the ship's sensors. He was an older man with white hair and thick glasses, the ship's chief science officer. Captain, these vessels are impressive, but their technology isn't as advanced as they think it is. Their weapons are powerful, but crude. Their shields are strong, but wasteful of energy. Interesting, Ross said. What about their formation? Classic intimidation pattern, answered Commander Price, the ship's tactical officer. She was a stern-looking woman with black hair pulled back tightly. They're trying to look scary rather than being tactically smart. If this were a real fight, they'd be vulnerable from at least 3 different angles. Ross nodded slowly. These observations matched what Earth's intelligence services had been reporting for months. The Valan Empire was powerful, but they had grown lazy from easy victories. They relied on fear and overwhelming force rather than skill or strategy. "Sir," Blake called out, "I'm picking up communications between the alien ships. They're not even trying to encrypt them." "What are they saying?" Ross asked. Blake listened to her earpiece for a moment, then looked up with a slight smile. "They're making jokes about us, sir, calling us primitives and pets. One of them is betting that we'll start crying within the hour." Several members of the bridge crew chuckled quietly. Ross allowed himself a small smile as well. The Valan's arrogance was actually helpful. Overconfident enemies made mistakes, and mistakes could be exploited. "Captain," Dr. Wells said, looking up from his sensors, "I'm detecting some interesting things about their ship designs. They've got some weak points that might be useful to know about." "Save it for the report, Doctor," Ross said. "Right now, we need to focus on our performance. Remember, we're supposed to be a simple exploration ship." This was the tricky part. The Wanderer was indeed disguised as an exploration vessel, but it was actually something much more dangerous. For the disguise to work, Ross and his crew had to act exactly like peaceful explorers would act in this situation. They couldn't appear too calm or too prepared, or the Valan might get suspicious. "Blake, open a channel to the lead ship again," Ross ordered. The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Vex's reptilian face. The alien looked amused, like he was watching an entertaining show. "Have you decided to surrender already?" Vex asked with a laugh. "That would be wise." "I wanted to ask about your empire," Ross said, trying to sound nervous and curious. "You said you've conquered 847 star systems. That's incredible. How long did that take?" Vex's chest puffed out with pride. "Over 2,000 years of glorious conquest. We are the greatest military force this galaxy has ever seen. No species has ever defeated us in battle." "Amazing," Ross said, shaking his head in fake wonder. "And you work together? 3 different species?" "The perfect combination," Vex boasted. "Valan strategy, hive coordination, and Nexari firepower. We are unstoppable." "I can see that," Ross replied. "Your ships are enormous. Our entire fleet back home probably isn't as big as just one of your vessels." This was technically true, but not in the way Vex thought. Human ships were built for efficiency and effectiveness, not size and intimidation. "Of course they aren't," Vex said with another laugh. "Primitive species always build small, weak ships. That's why they get conquered so easily." "Have you conquered many species recently?" Ross asked, still playing the part of the curious explorer. "Just last month we finished with a species called the Krell," Vex said proudly. "They thought their crystal cities made them special. It took us 2 days to turn their cities into dust." Ross kept his expression neutral, but inside he felt a cold anger. The Krell had been one of Earth's potential allies. Intelligence reports said the Valan had killed over 6 billion Krell civilians during their conquest. 2 days, Ross repeated. "That's very efficient." "We are always efficient," Vex replied. "That's why I'm giving you 24 hours. Most species get much less time to accept their fate. We appreciate your generosity," Ross said carefully. After the communication ended, the bridge was quiet for a moment. Finally, Lieutenant Blake spoke up. "Sir, that was hard to listen to. The Krell were good people." "I know," Ross said quietly. "That's why we're here." Commander Price looked up from her tactical station. "Captain, should we begin preparations?" "Not yet," Ross replied. "We need to let them watch us for a while first. They expect us to either panic or try to run. We need to give them what they expect to see." For the next several hours, the Wanderer played its part perfectly. The crew sent messages to their families on Earth, explaining the situation in worried voices. They ran diagnostics on their systems, as if looking for some way to escape. They held meetings where they discussed their impossible situation in hushed, frightened tones. All of this was being monitored by the Valan ships, exactly as Ross intended. The aliens were seeing exactly what they expected to see: a helpless exploration crew facing their doom. But not everything the humans did was for show. While some crew members were playing their parts, others were working in sections of the ship that the Valan sensors couldn't detect. They were making real preparations, but not the kind the aliens would expect. Dr. Wells was in his lab, making final adjustments to several devices that definitely didn't belong on an exploration ship. Commander Price was in the armory, checking weapons that were hidden behind false walls. Engineering teams were working on systems that the Valan had no idea existed. "Sir," Blake called out after several hours had passed, "the aliens are getting restless. They keep asking each other when we're going to start begging for mercy." "Let them wonder," Ross said. "How much time do we have left?" 18 hours. "Sir?" "Good. Send the message to command now. Use the standard exploration frequency, but include the special coding." Blake nodded and began working at her communications station. To any alien listening, it would sound like a routine message to Earth's exploration headquarters. But hidden in the message was information that would be very interesting to Earth's Colonial Defense Force. "Message sent, sir," Blake reported. "Excellent. Now we wait." "For what, Captain?" asked Dr. Wells. Ross looked out at the alien fleet surrounding them. 12 massive warships, thousands of alien crew members, enough firepower to destroy planets. The Valan Empire's finest, proud and confident in their superiority. For them to realize they've made a terrible mistake, Ross said quietly. The Valan had no idea that their 24-hour deadline wasn't just time for the humans to prepare to die. It was time for much larger preparations to be completed. Preparations that had been months in the making. The Wanderer continued its act, playing the part of a doomed exploration ship. But hidden in the depths of space, other ships were moving. Ships that weren't explorers at all. The Valan Empire was about to learn that humans could be very, very patient when they were hunting. The 24-hour deadline was only 30 minutes away. Captain Vex stood on the bridge of the Dominion's edge, watching the human ship on his main screen. For hours, he had been feeling more and more worried, and now that worry had turned into real fear. "Sir," Commander Kale reported, his insect voice shaking slightly. "Those energy readings from the outer system are much stronger now. I count at least 20 separate signatures." 20? Vex's voice cracked. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir." "And they're moving closer." Tech Officer Hex looked up from his station, his face pale. "Captain, I'm detecting massive power buildups throughout this entire system. Whatever's out there, it's been hiding and now it's waking up." Vex felt his hands tremble as he gripped his command chair. This was wrong. Everything about this situation was wrong. The humans should be crying and begging by now. Instead, their ship was just sitting there calmly, as if they were waiting for something. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human vessel," Communications Officer Rex announced. "Put it on screen," Vex ordered, though he wasn't sure he wanted to see what Captain Ross had to say. The screen flickered to life, but something was different. The bridge of the human ship looked changed. Equipment that hadn't been visible before was now active and glowing. Crew members were moving with military precision instead of the nervous scrambling they had shown earlier. Captain Ross appeared on screen, but he wasn't wearing the simple exploration uniform anymore. Now he wore dark military clothing with rank, insignia that Vex didn't recognize. His calm expression had been replaced by something much more dangerous. "Captain Vex," Ross said, his voice completely different now. Gone was the nervous explorer. This voice belonged to a predator. "I think it's time we had an honest conversation." What is the meaning of this?" Vex stammered. Ross smiled coldly. "The meaning is that you've been played, Captain. Everything you think you know about this encounter is wrong." As Ross spoke, the human ship began to change before their eyes. Parts of the outer hull started moving, sliding away like petals on a flower. Underneath was revealed a sleek, black surface covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. "What you've been looking at for the past 24 hours isn't the exploration vessel Wanderer," Ross continued. "That was just a disguise. Allow me to introduce the real ship." More of the fake hull peeled away, revealing angular weapon systems and armor plating that looked nothing like the peaceful exploration ship they had first seen. Strange symbols glowed along the hull, symbols that looked like they belonged on a warship, not a research vessel. "This is the Colonial Defense Force vessel Harbinger," Ross announced. "And I am Admiral Ross, not Captain. We are not explorers. Captain Vex, we are hunters." The bridge of the Dominion's edge erupted in shocked voices. Commander Kale's antennae were twitching wildly. Sub-Commander Nex was chiming in distress. Tech Officer Hex was frantically working at his controls. "Impossible!" Vex shouted. "You're just one small ship. We have 12 warships." "Do you?" Ross asked with a dangerous smile. "Look around you, Captain. Look very carefully." On cue, space around the Vallon fleet began to shimmer. One by one, massive shapes began appearing out of nowhere. Human warships, dozens of them, materializing from what had seemed like empty space. They had been there all along, hidden by some kind of advanced stealth technology. Each human ship was smaller than the Vallon vessels, but they moved with deadly grace. Their hulls were dark and angular, covered in weapons that were already powering up. Strange blue energy danced along their surfaces. "Stealth technology," Vex whispered in horror. "They've been surrounding us this whole time." "For 3 days, actually," Ross said casually. "We've been tracking your battle group since you entered the system. Every move you've made, every formation you've used, every weakness in your defenses, we've been studying it all." More human ships continued to appear until the Vallon fleet was completely surrounded. Vex counted 43 enemy vessels, and more were still materializing. But you're primitives," Vex protested. "Your technology is supposed to be basic." Ross laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "That's what we wanted you to think. You see, Captain, we've been hunting your empire for 3 years now, ever since you started attacking our colonies." "Your colonies?" Vex's eyes went wide. "Oh yes, the settlements on Kepler 442b. Those were human colonies. The research station on Wolf 359? Ours too. The mining operation in the Vega system? Also ours." Ross's voice grew colder with each word. "You've been murdering our people for 3 years, thinking they were just random primitive species." The truth hit Vex like a physical blow. All those easy conquests, all those primitive settlements they had destroyed. They had been attacking the same species over and over again. And that species had been learning from each attack, studying them, preparing. "Every time you hit one of our colonies, we learned more about you," Ross continued. "Your weapons, your tactics, your arrogance. We studied you like scientists study insects. And then we set a trap." "The Wanderer," Vex said weakly, "was bait. We knew your empire couldn't resist attacking what looked like a helpless exploration ship, so we disguised one of our most advanced warships and waited for you to come to us." Commander Kale turned to Vex, his compound eyes filled with panic. "Sir, what are your orders?" Vex looked around at the human fleet surrounding them. 43 warships against 12. Advanced stealth technology, weapons that were already targeting his ships, and worst of all, an enemy that had been studying them for years while they remained completely ignorant. "Sir, they're powering weapons," Tech Officer Hex shouted. Ross appeared on screen one final time. "Captain Vex, you said your empire has conquered 8 or 47 star systems in 2,000 years. Very impressive. But you made one critical mistake." "What mistake?" Vex asked, though he dreaded the answer. "You assumed that because we looked primitive, we actually were primitive. You confused technology with intelligence, size with strength, age with wisdom." Ross leaned forward. "Let me tell you something about humans, Captain. We are a species that spent thousands of years perfecting the art of war against our own kind. We turned deception into a science. We made strategy into an art form. And we never ever stopped learning from our enemies. The weapons on the human ships were now glowing brightly, ready to fire. You wanted to add humanity to your list of conquered species," Ross said. "Instead, you're about to become the first species we've decided to stop." Vex opened his mouth to give orders, to fight, to run, to surrender, but no words came out. For the first time in his long military career, He was facing an enemy that had outsmarted him completely. The hunt was over. But the Valon Empire had been the prey all along. The first human weapon fired with a sound like thunder, splitting the void. A beam of brilliant blue energy struck the Valon cruiser Iron Fang, and the massive alien ship's shields flared bright orange before collapsing completely. The beam continued, through the hull like it was made of paper, cutting the ship cleanly in half. Captain Vex watched in horror as one of his most powerful vessels died in a single shot. All ships, return fire now. The Valon fleet responded immediately, their massive weapons blazing to life. Streams of plasma and particle beams lanced out toward the human ships, enough firepower to destroy entire planets. But something impossible happened. The human vessels simply weren't there anymore. Where did they go? Commander Kale screamed, his insect eyes darting frantically across his screens. They're moving too fast, Tech Officer Hex reported. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them. The human ships danced through space like deadly shadows, their smaller size allowing them to move with impossible speed and grace. They appeared behind Valon vessels, fired devastating shots, then vanished again before the aliens could respond. It was like fighting ghosts. Another Valon ship, the heavy destroyer Bone Crusher, exploded in a brilliant fireball as 3 human vessels coordinated their attack. The aliens' proud formation was falling apart as ships tried to turn and fire at enemies that moved like quicksilver. Sir, the humans are using some kind of advanced maneuvering system, Hex called out over the noise of battle. Their ships can change direction instantly without slowing down. Vex gripped his command chair as the Dominion's edge shook from near misses. Around him, his bridge crew was panicking. These weren't the easy battles they were used to. This was a nightmare. Kale, order all ships to form defensive formation pattern 7, Vex shouted. I'm trying, sir, but 3 ships aren't responding. I think they're already dead. On the main screen, Admiral Ross appeared again. His ship, the Harbinger, was moving through the battle like a predator among prey. Its weapons fired with deadly precision, each shot finding exactly the right spot. To cripple or destroy a Valon vessel, Captain Vex, Ross said calmly, as if they were having a casual conversation instead of fighting a space battle. Are you beginning to understand now? Understand what? Vex snarled, even as another of his ships died in the background. The difference between a warrior and a bully, Ross replied. Your empire has spent 2,000 years beating up species that couldn't fight back. You've forgotten what real combat looks like. A human fighter squadron screamed past the main screen, their small ships moving so fast they were just streaks of light. They swarmed around the Valon battleship Death's Head like angry insects, their weapons finding weak points in the armor that the aliens didn't even know existed. Your weapons are powerful but slow, Ross continued, his ship dodging a massive plasma blast that would have vaporized any other vessel. Your shields are strong but inefficient. Your tactics are from a textbook written 1,000 years ago. The Death's Head tried to swat the human fighters with its point defense systems, but they moved in patterns that seemed impossible. They flew in formation so tight that they looked like a single organism, coordinating their attacks with perfect timing. But worst of all, Ross said, as the Death's Head finally succumbed to the swarming attack, you've grown soft. You expect your enemies to be afraid of you. You've forgotten that the most dangerous predators are the ones that hunt other predators. Sub-Commander Nex, her crystalline body chiming in terror, looked up from her station. Sir, we've lost 7 ships. 7 ships in 10 minutes. Vex couldn't believe what he was hearing. The Valon Empire's most elite battle group was being torn apart by a force half their size. It should have been impossible. Sir, incoming priority message from Admiral. Kor on the Titan's Wrath, Rex called out. Put him on screen. The image split to show Admiral Kor, the commander of the 2nd Battle Group. His reptilian face was filled with panic. Vex, we're under attack. Humans' ships appeared out of nowhere. They're destroying everything. What? Your 3 systems. Away, Vex shouted. They hit us at the same time they hit you. This was coordinated. There are human fleets everywhere. The transmission cut to static as the Titan's Wrath exploded in the distance. Admiral Ross smiled coldly. Did you really think we'd only send 1 fleet to deal with you? We've been tracking all of your battle groups for months. Today we're hitting 12 different Valon fleets simultaneously across 6 star systems. Vex felt his world crumbling. Around him, the Valon Empire's entire military was under attack at the same time. It was the most coordinated strike in galactic history. "This is impossible," he whispered. "No species has ever had this kind of coordination." "No alien species," Ross corrected. "But humans wrote the book on planetary warfare. We've been fighting massive coordinated battles for thousands of years. What you're experiencing right now is just a Tuesday for us." Another explosion rocked the Dominion's edge as human weapons found their mark. The ship's mighty shields, which had never failed in 2 centuries of combat, flickered and died. "Sir, shields are down. Hull breaches on deck 7 through 12, Hex reported. Commander Kale turned to Vex, his compound eyes reflecting the fires burning throughout the ship. "Sir, we have to surrender. We can't win this." "The Valon Empire does not surrender," Vex roared, but his voice lacked conviction. "Then, the Valon Empire dies," Ross said simply. Around them, the last few Valon ships were fighting desperately, but it was hopeless. The humans moved like they were reading their enemies' minds, anticipating every move, countering every tactic. It wasn't just superior technology, it was superior thinking. "Sir, emergency transmission coming in from Valon Prime," Rex called out urgently. "Put it through." The aged face of Supreme Commander Thex appeared on screen, his yellow eyes wide with terror. "All battle groups retreat immediately. The humans have reached our home system. They're attacking the capital." "What?" Vex couldn't process what he was hearing. 60 human fleets just appeared out of hyperspace around Valon Prime. "They demand our complete surrender or they will destroy our entire civilization. All forces are ordered to lay down arms immediately." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Admiral Ross appeared one final time. "It's over, Captain Vex. Your Empire's 2,000-year reign of terror ends today. You have one choice. Surrender now and live or die with your ship." Vex looked around his burning bridge. His crew was looking at him with desperate hope, waiting for him to save them. Outside, the human fleet waited patiently for his answer. For the first time in his life, the mighty Captain Vex, terror of the galaxy, apex predator of the stars, did something he had never done before. He surrendered. "This is Captain Vex of the Valon Imperial Fleet," he said quietly. We surrender." As his weapons powered down, and his remaining ships followed suit, Vex realized the truth that would haunt him forever. The galaxy had new apex predators now, and they were called humans.
Admiral James Walker stood at the large window of the Earth Defense Force ship Relentless, his eyes fixed on the massive space station ahead. The Galactic Council headquarters looked impressive against the backdrop of stars, its curved arms stretching out like a giant metal flower. 10 years ago, when humans first joined the Council, the sight had filled him with hope. Today, it only made his stomach twist with anger. "Admiral, you need to see this." Lieutenant Kira Reed rushed into the observation deck, her face pale. She held a small data pad in her hand like it might burn her fingers. Walker turned from the window. Reed was not someone who panicked easily. Whatever she had found must be serious. "What is it, Lieutenant?" "Intelligence just broke the encryption on those strange messages we intercepted last month." She handed him the pad with a steady hand, but her eyes showed fear. "It's worse than we thought, sir." Walker took the pad and began to read. With each swipe of his finger, his face grew harder. The data showed detailed plans, secret meetings, and hidden agreements between the most powerful members of the Council. The Morians, with their 3,000-year-old empire. The Vex, with their superior weapons, all plotting against Earth and its colonies. "They're afraid of us," Walker said quietly. Reed nodded. "Yes, sir. According to these files, they believe humans are advancing too quickly. It took the Morians 500 years to develop faster than light travel. It took us less than 200. Walker continued reading, his eyes stopping on a specific date. This says they plan to attack our outer colonies in 48 hours. He looked up sharply, all at once, disguised as pirate raids. Yes, sir. They'll hit New Mars, Europa Station, and the Titan mining facility simultaneously. The attacks will appear unconnected, but they're designed to cripple our resource supply chain. Walker put down the pad and walked back to the window. The beautiful station now looked like a predator waiting to strike. For 10 years, humans had shared their technology, traded fairly, and fought alongside other species against common threats. They had trusted the Council's promise of galactic peace and cooperation. All eyes. Contact Earth Central Command immediately, Walker ordered. Priority Alpha. Send them everything we have. Already done, sir. Reed hesitated before adding, there's more. The Morians have been stealing our technology. Those new shield systems they revealed last year. They're based on Dr. Miller's designs that were supposedly rejected by the Council as too unstable. Walker wasn't surprised. Humans had always been good at finding creative solutions to problems. Their technology often looked messy to the more established species, but it worked. Sometimes it worked better than the careful, traditional designs the older races preferred. Sir, what do you think Earth Command will do? Walker stared at the station. The smart move would be to strike first, hit their key military outposts before they can organize. But that would mean war with the entire Council. Maybe not. Look at these files again. Many of the smaller Council members aren't part of this plot. Some might even be targeted next, once we're dealt with. Reed's communication device beeped. She checked it, and her eyes widened. Earth Command has called an emergency meeting of all senior military and political leaders. They're asking for you to join via secure channel. Walker nodded. Set it up in my quarters. And Reed, don't tell anyone else about this yet. Not even the other officers. 6 hours later, Walker emerged from his quarters. His uniform was wrinkled, and dark circles had formed under his eyes. Reed was waiting outside, her posture stiff with tension. What did they decide, sir? Walker took a deep breath. Something unprecedented. We're going to give them one chance to back down. The Council? Sir, with respect, they outnumber us 57-1. A small, hard smile appeared on Walker's face. Numbers aren't everything, Lieutenant. He handed her a new data pad. These are your orders. Prepare the ship for immediate departure, but first, I need you to deliver a message to Ambassador Grant on the station. In person, not through channels. Tell him Operation Sunflare is now active. Reed took the pad, her expression confused. Operation Sunflare. I'm not familiar with that protocol. It's been dormant since before you joined my crew. A contingency plan we hoped we'd never need. Walker looked back toward the window, though the station wasn't visible from this part of the ship. The Council thinks they know what humans are capable of. They've studied our weapons, our ships, our tactics. He turned back to Reed, his eyes showing a determination that made her stand straighter. But they've never seen what happens when humanity is truly threatened. They think they're dealing with just another young species, eager to please the galactic community. His voice dropped lower. They're about to learn they're dealing with survivors. Earth wasn't a peaceful paradise like the Morian homeworld. We evolved fighting each other, nature, disease, disaster. We've been preparing for threats our entire existence. What exactly will we do, sir? Ambassador Grant will deliver our terms tomorrow during the high session, when all members are present. The Council will have 24 hours to meet our demands. And if they refuse? Walker's face showed no emotion now, just cool resolve. Then we show them why they should have left us alone. Reed saluted and turned to carry out her orders, but paused at the door. Sir, do you think they'll listen? Walker looked at the data again, at the detailed plans for humanity's containment and eventual subjugation. He thought about Earth's history, filled with those who underestimated their opponents and paid the price. No, Lieutenant, I don't think they will. But we'll give them the chance anyway. He straightened his uniform. That's what separates us from them. We'll offer peace first, but they won't like what follows if they refuse." Reed nodded and left. Admiral Walker returned to the window, watching as the Relentless adjusted its position, bringing the Galactic Council station into view once more. "You should have studied our history more carefully," he whispered to the distant figures he knew were plotting inside that station. "You're not the first to think humans were easy prey." He activated his communication device. "Bridge, set course for the rendezvous point. As soon as Lieutenant Reed returns from the station with Ambassador Grant, we leave." The betrayal was in motion, but so was humanity's response. And soon, the entire galaxy would remember why the ancient human mourning still rang true. Beware the fury of a patient people. Ambassador Thomas Grant straightened his dark blue uniform as he walked down the long corridor toward the Grand Chamber. 2 guards from the Earth Defense Force followed him, their faces blank but their eyes alert. The massive doors of the chamber loomed ahead, carved with symbols representing the 57 member species of the Galactic Council. 10 years ago, when Grant had first entered these doors as Earth's representative, he had felt wonder and pride. Today, he felt only resolve. "They're all inside, sir," whispered one of his guards. "Full attendance, as you requested." Grant nodded. "Remember your orders. No matter what happens, do not draw your weapons unless I am physically attacked." The guards nodded. They understood the importance of appearing peaceful, even while delivering what might be the most threatening message in human diplomatic history. The doors slid open silently, revealing the enormous circular room beyond. Tiered seating rose in all directions, filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Some looked humanoid, others were utterly alien. Floating gas-filled sacs, crystalline structures, or multi-limbed insectoids. All turned to watch as Grant entered. At the center of the chamber stood the speaker's platform, currently occupied by Archspeaker Telvin of the Morian Empire. His purple skin and 4 eyes were common features of his ancient species. The Morians had been founding members of the Council 10,000 years ago. "Ambassador Grant." Telvin's voice echoed through the chamber. "The Council did not expect Earth's presence today. We have many important matters to discuss." "I'm sure you do," Grant replied, his voice steady. "I request emergency speaking privileges." A murmur ran through the chamber. Emergency privileges were rarely granted and allowed a speaker to address the full council uninterrupted. Telvin's upper eyes narrowed. "On what grounds?" "Threat to galactic peace and security," Grant answered. "Article 7, Section 3 of the Council Charter. The Archspeaker couldn't refuse without violating the Charter." "Very well. The Council recognizes Earth. Ambassador Grant, you have the floor." Grant stepped onto the central platform as Telvin moved aside, clearly annoyed. The human ambassador took a small device from his pocket and placed it on the podium before him. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice now amplified throughout the chamber. "For 10 years, Earth has been a loyal member of this body. We have shared our technology, opened our borders to trade, and contributed to joint defense initiatives." He paused, looking around at the assembled faces. Some wouldn't show human recognizable emotions, but he could see confusion, curiosity, and in a few cases, growing unease. "In return, certain members of this council have conspired against us." Grant pressed a button on his device. Suddenly, the chamber's main holographic display activated. Messages, plans, and meeting minutes appeared in the air for all to see, the same encrypted files that Admiral Walker had received. These documents, which we have verified as authentic, reveal a plot to attack Earth colonies within the next 48 hours. The chamber erupted in noise. Some representatives jumped to their feet in surprise or outrage. Others sat in stunned silence. A few, notably the Morians and the Vex, remained suspiciously calm. Grant raised his voice over the din. The attacks were to be disguised as pirate raids, but their true purpose was clear: to cripple human expansion and steal our technology. The Vex representative, Commander Draz, stood up. His metallic skin reflected the lights of the chamber as he pointed an accusing finger at Grant. "These are forgeries. The human delegation is trying to distract from their own violations of Council technology sharing protocols." Grant smiled thinly. "If they were forgeries, Commander, how would I know about the meeting you held 3 days ago in the Praxis system? Or about your new shield technology, reverse-engineered from Dr. Miller's designs, that your own scientists claimed were fundamentally flawed when we presented them last year?" Draz's silver face couldn't show pallor, but his four-fingered hand dropped slightly. "The truth," Grant continued, "is that some of you fear us. Humans advanced too quickly for your comfort. We solved problems in ways you didn't expect. We didn't follow the careful, plodding path that your species took over millennia." He looked directly at Archspeaker Telvin. "And so you decided to put us in our place, before we became too powerful to control." Telvin stepped forward. "These are serious accusations, Ambassador Grant. Even if some elements of the Council acted inappropriately, surely we can resolve this through proper channels." "No," Grant cut him off. "The time for talk is over. Earth has authorized me to deliver our terms." He touched his device again, and new text appeared on the holographic display. 1. Immediate dissolution of the current Council leadership and full investigation into their actions. 2. Complete reparations for sabotaged colonies and stolen technology. 3. A new treaty recognizing Earth's full sovereignty and right to independent defense. The chamber grew completely silent as Grant delivered the final part of his message. "You have 24 hours to comply with these terms. If they are not met, humanity withdraws from the Galactic Council permanently." His voice hardened. "And you would be wise to put as much distance between yourselves and human space as possible." Commander Draz laughed, the sound echoing metallically through the silent chamber. "And what will your species do against 56 others, human? Your fleets are outnumbered 100 to 1. Your colonies could be reduced to ash with a single order." Grant looked at the Vex commander, his expression calm, but his eyes hard. "Run," he said simply. Then he collected his device, turned his back on the stunned assembly, and walked out of the grand chamber. His guards fell in behind him, leaving absolute silence in their wake. 3 hours later, the Council voted. The final tally: 52 members in favor of rejecting Earth's outrageous demands, 3 abstentions, and 2 votes in support of negotiation. Archspeaker Telvin addressed the Council after the vote. "The humans have clearly lost their senses. Perhaps they were not ready for membership after all. We will proceed with containment measures as planned, but accelerated to prevent any further human aggression." As the representatives filed out, a small, insect-like being approached the Morian leader. "Speaker Telvin, my government is concerned. What if the humans truly have some hidden capability?" Their ambassador seemed very confident. Telvin looked down at the representative with all 4 eyes. "The humans are bluffing. They're clever and unpredictable, yes, but they're still a young species. Their confidence is nothing but arrogance." Unknown to the departing council members, a human surveillance drone hidden in the chamber's decorative ceiling transmitted everything back to the waiting Earth fleet. Admiral Walker received the council's decision while standing on the bridge of the Relentless. He wasn't surprised. "They've made their choice," he said to Lieutenant Reed. "Send the signal to all Earth forces. Operation Sunflare is now fully active." Reed hesitated for just a moment. "This will change everything, sir." Walker nodded. "Yes, it will. Let's hope they learn to run fast." General Draz stood on the command deck of the Inevitable Victory, flagship of the combined Galactic Council fleet. Around him, over 200 warships moved in perfect formation toward the Sol system. Most belonged to the Morians and the Vex, but nearly every Council species had contributed at least one vessel to the massive armada. "Status report," Draz ordered, his metallic fingers tapping against the command console. His second-in-command, a Morian named Kelver, approached with a data tablet. "All ships report ready, General. We will reach Earth's outer defense perimeter in 30 minutes." Draz nodded. Any sign of human resistance? None, sir. Our scouts report that the human defense platforms around Neptune and Uranus have been powered down. We've detected no military vessels in the outer system. This wasn't what Draz had expected. The humans should have been scrambling their ships, manning their defenses. Their 24-hour deadline had passed 6 hours ago. Could they have evacuated? Kelver asked, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence. Impossible, Draz replied. Earth has 10 billion inhabitants. They couldn't possibly evacuate in 30 hours. But doubt crept into his circuits. The human ambassador's single-word warning, "Run," played again in his memory banks. Approach with caution, he ordered. Full scans of the entire system. I want to know where their ships are hiding. The massive fleet continued inward, passing Neptune's orbit with no resistance. The blue gas giant's moons showed abandoned human mining facilities, hastily evacuated. The pattern repeated at Uranus. Sir, Kelvor reported, his voice uncertain. Long-range scans of Earth show normal population levels. Their orbital stations appear intact but empty. What about their military installations on Mars and their moon? The Mars Defense Base reads as fully staffed, but their weapon systems are offline. The lunar base. Kelver paused, checking his readings again. The lunar base is showing unusual energy signatures, nothing we've seen from humans before. Draz's silver face couldn't show expressions, but his posture stiffened. Specific location. The far side of the moon, sir. The area they call the Daedalus Crater. Maintain course, but have the fleet spread out. Whatever weapon they're planning to use, I want to minimize its effectiveness. As the Armada approached Earth's moon, the strange energy readings grew stronger. Science officers across the fleet reported increasing gravitational anomalies. Sir, Kelver said suddenly, the lunar surface, it's changing. On the main view screen, the cratered surface of the moon's far side began to shift. Dust and rock flowed away from a circular area nearly 50 kilometers wide. Then, with a soundless eruption visible even from space, the lunar surface broke apart, revealing a massive installation beneath. Impossible, Draz whispered. Our intelligence said they had no technology like this. The installation rose from the moon's surface like a giant metal flower blooming. Enormous panels unfolded, revealing what looked like massive cannons. But they weren't pointing at the approaching fleet. They were aiming at the stars. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from Earth, Kelvor reported, his voice shaking. Put it through, Draz ordered. The view screen changed to show Admiral Walker, standing in what appeared to be a control center deep inside the lunar installation. Behind him, humans worked at control panels, their movements calm and precise. General Draz, Walker said, his voice even. I see the Council voted to reject our terms. This is your final chance to surrender, human, Draz replied. Your weapon, however impressive, cannot stop 200 warships. Walker smiled slightly. This isn't a weapon, General. At least, not one designed to target your fleet. He gestured to someone off-screen, and the view changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Several points of light pulsed on the map. What you're seeing is Project Prometheus, humanity's best-kept secret. For the past 5 years, we've been building similar installations throughout human space. The view switched back to Walker. You see, General, while the Council was busy stealing our shield designs, you missed what we were really working on. Stellar manipulation technology. Impossible, Draz repeated. No species has ever managed to affect stellar bodies at a distance. Until now, Walker replied. Allow me to demonstrate. He pressed a button on his console, and the enormous cannons on the lunar surface began to glow with blue-white energy. I suggest you look at the Rigel system, approximately 30 light-years from your current position. Draz signaled to his science officer, who quickly brought up a view of Rigel on a secondary screen. The bright blue star looked normal, until it suddenly flared, growing dramatically brighter for several seconds before returning to normal. That was a targeted gravitational pulse, Walker explained. Harmless in this case, just enough to cause a momentary disruption in the star's fusion process. But at higher settings. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. We've placed similar installations throughout human space, Walker continued. They can accelerate stellar aging, temporarily stabilize dying stars, or in extreme cases, trigger supernovas. Draz finished, his mechanical voice flat. Walker nodded. Exactly. Now look at these coordinates. He transmitted a string of numbers. Kelver quickly entered them into the navigation system, bringing up a view of a remote star system with no habitable planets. As they watched, the unremarkable yellow star in the center of the system suddenly brightened, then erupted in a massive explosion, a stellar flare thousands of times larger than anything natural. That star will return to normal in approximately 12 hours, Walker said. No permanent damage done. But it could have been different. The implications were clear. If humans could cause even a small nova effect at will, they could devastate entire star systems. Silence fell over the command deck of the inevitable Victory. Draz's metal fingers gripped the edge of his console so tightly they left dents. This is your final warning, General, Walker said. Leave human space permanently. Tell the Council that Earth is now an independent power. We will not accept their authority, and we will defend ourselves by any means necessary. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Orders, sir, Kelver finally asked. Draz stared at the lunar installation, its massive cannon still glowing with power. His logical circuits calculated the odds, analyzed the threat. Signal the fleet, he said at last. All ships to withdraw immediately to the rendezvous point outside this system. We're retreating. Kelver's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in surprise. For now, Draz replied. The Council must be informed of this development. As the massive fleet began to turn away from Earth, emergency transmissions flooded in from across the galaxy. Other Council worlds had spotted similar demonstrations near their own systems. The humans hadn't just built one stellar manipulation device. They had built dozens, all activating simultaneously. On the lunar base, Admiral Walker watched the Council fleet retreat. Beside him, Lieutenant Reed monitored the system's long-range sensors. They're leaving, sir, she reported. All 200 ships. Walker nodded. But this isn't over. The Morians and Vex won't give up so easily. They'll be back, once they convince themselves we're bluffing about the scale of our capabilities. Are we bluffing, sir? Reed asked quietly. Walker didn't answer immediately. He looked at the massive installation around them, the product of Earth's greatest scientific minds, working in perfect secrecy. Let's hope we never have to find out, he said finally. The emergency meeting of the Galactic Council was nothing like the orderly sessions of the past. Representatives shouted over each other, some demanding immediate surrender to human demands, others calling for an all-out war regardless of the consequences. Arch-Speaker Telvin struggled to maintain order, his 4 eyes darting nervously around the chamber. The massive holographic displays showed images of the human stellar manipulation devices captured by retreating Council ships. Silence. Telvin finally shouted, his voice amplified to painful levels. The chamber gradually quieted. We must respond to this human threat with unity and resolve, he said when he could be heard. Our combined forces are still vastly superior to Earth's. Representative Mira of the Lorian Confederation stood up. Unlike the Morians or Vex, the Lorians were a younger species, having joined the Council only 50 years before humans. Superior forces mean nothing if the humans can destroy entire star systems, she said, her feathered crest rising in agitation. The Lorian Confederation formally withdraws from any military action against Earth. In fact, we intend to send envoys to negotiate a separate peace. Shouts of traitor and coward echoed through the chamber, but Mira wasn't alone. One by one, representatives from nearly 30 Council species announced similar positions. This is madness, hissed Commander Draz, now representing the Vex in the council chamber. The humans are bluffing about the scale of their capabilities. They cannot possibly control dozens of stellar manipulation devices simultaneously. Can we afford to take that chance? Asked the Trescan delegate, his translucent body pulsing with stress colors. One mistake could mean billions of deaths. The debate raged for hours, but the outcome was clear. The council was fracturing, with most species unwilling to risk further confrontation with humans. By the session's end, only a faction led by the Morians and Vex still advocated for military action. Arch-Speaker Telvin and Commander Draz met privately after the session. "This is a disaster," Telvin said, his skin darkening with anger. "Centuries of council authority, undone in a day." "Not yet," Draz replied, his metallic fingers clicking against the table. "The humans revealed their technology too soon. Our scientists are already analyzing the images. They believe the stellar manipulation effect has severe limitations." "Explain." "The demonstration was impressive, but carefully controlled. We believe the humans can only affect stars of certain types, and only at certain ranges. More importantly, the energy requirements must be enormous." Telvin's upper eyes narrowed. "So you still believe we should attack?" "Not the main Earth system. Not yet. But their outer colonies are likely unprotected by this technology. If we strike fast enough, we can test their capabilities and their resolve." The Arch-Speaker considered this. "The Council won't authorize such action now." "Then we don't ask for authorization," Draz said simply. "The Morian Empire and Vex Imperium have enough ships to launch targeted strikes. Once we expose the humans' bluff, the Council will rally behind us again." And so, while peace envoys from dozens of species traveled toward Earth, a secret fleet assembled in Morian space. 3 battle groups, each targeting a different human colony world. New Eden, Proxima Centauri Base, and the Armstrong mining outpost. The attacks began simultaneously, 48 hours after the council meeting. On Earth, President Anna Foster received the emergency transmission in the middle of the night. The holographic display in her bedroom showed 3 red alerts flashing over human colony worlds. Confirmed reports of Morian and Vex ships attacking all 3 targets, reported Defense Minister Robert Mason, his face grim on the split screen. Civilian casualties already reported on New Eden. Foster was fully awake instantly. "Have they responded to our warnings?" "No, Madam President. They jammed communications before attacking." "They think we're bluffing," Foster said quietly. "Or they're testing which systems we can actually protect." She got out of bed and moved to her desk, activating her secure command interface. "Implement Defense Protocol Theta. Priority is protecting civilian populations." "Understood, Madam President. Admiral Walker is standing by." The President's screen changed to show Walker at the Prometheus Command Center. "Admiral, you're authorized to use minimum necessary force to repel these attacks and protect our people. Keep civilian casualties, ours and theirs, as low as possible." Walker nodded. "Yes, Madam President. We've been tracking their fleet movements since they left Morian space. We're ready. Good luck, Admiral." Foster ended the transmission and turned to Mason. "Convene the Defense Council immediately. This is the moment of truth." Commander Draz personally led the attack on New Eden, humanity's largest off-Earth colony with nearly 1 million inhabitants. His fleet of 30 warships entered orbit around the peaceful agricultural world and immediately began targeting defense installations. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the human defenses are minimal. Their orbital platforms are already disabled." Draz's circuits hummed with satisfaction. "Begin landing ground forces at the main settlement. I want control of their government center within 2 hours." "Sir, we're detecting energy surges from the planet's southern pole." Before Draz could respond, space itself seemed to warp around his fleet. Invisible forces gripped the Vex ships, holding them in place. Warning alarms blared across the command deck. "Gravitational distortion," shouted the science officer. massive localized gravity well forming. On the view screen, Draz watched in horror as a small black sphere appeared in space, just 50 kilometers from his fleet. It pulsed with dark energy, growing stronger by the second. Artificial gravity well, Draz realized too late. Maximum reverse thrust. Get us clear. But the ships couldn't move. The gravity well held them in place while somehow not crushing them completely. A level of gravitational control that should have been impossible. A transmission cut through the chaos, and Admiral Walker's face appeared on Draz's command screen. "Commander Draz, you seem to be having propulsion problems. Release our ships immediately," Draz demanded. This act of aggression. Walker's voice was dangerously quiet. "You attacked a peaceful colony. There are children on New Eden." Before Draz could respond, Walker continued, "Your ships are now held by targeted gravity fields. They will remain there until our evacuation ships have removed every civilian from the planet. Then you will be escorted out of human space." At that moment, reports flooded in from the other battle groups. The same scenario was playing out at all three colonies, Morian and Vex ships trapped in artificial gravity wells, unable to move or fight. But the humans weren't done. As Draz watched helplessly, small, fast ships appeared from behind New Eden's moon. They weren't warships. They looked more like maintenance vessels, but they carried something far more dangerous than weapons. "Sir," his tactical officer's voice shook, "the human vessels are attaching devices to our ship's hulls." Within 30 minutes, every Morian and Vex ship in all three systems had been tagged with small, blinking devices. Walker's face reappeared on the screen. "Those are locator beacons linked to our stellar manipulation network. If any of your ships ever enter human space again, we'll know exactly where to direct a gravitational pulse." The message was clear. Even without destroying the attacking fleets, humans had effectively neutralized them as threats. "This isn't over, human," Draz said, his mechanical voice cold. "Actually, Commander," Walker replied, "it is. Look at your secondary screen." Draz did, and what he saw froze his circuits. Across Morian and Vex space, their military installations, shipyards, and defense platforms were systematically shutting down or exploding. Precision strikes from weapons no one had detected. "Faster than light attack drones," Walker explained. "Another technology we kept to ourselves. Your military infrastructure will take years to rebuild." His expression hardened. "Time you can use to reconsider your position on peaceful coexistence." The transmission ended, leaving Draz staring at the silent command deck of his immobilized flagship, facing the greatest defeat in Vex history. 6 months had passed since the failed attacks on human colonies. The massive space station, where the Galactic Council had met for thousands of years, now floated empty and dark. In its place, a new meeting ground had been established. Neutral ground, an asteroid habitat built specifically for the new era of interstellar relations. Unlike the old council chambers with their tiered seating that placed ancient species like the Morians literally above the newer members, neutral ground featured a perfectly circular table. No position was higher or more prominent than any other. Ambassador Thomas Grant stood by the large viewing window, watching as ships from across the galaxy arrived for the historic first meeting of what was being called the Interstellar Alliance. Behind him, his aide reviewed notes on a datapad. 32 species have confirmed attendance, she reported, including, surprisingly, the Morians and Vex. Grant nodded. Not surprising at all. They have no choice but to adapt. Their military power is broken, their economies in shambles. The door slid open, and Admiral Walker entered the room. He had retired from active service 2 weeks earlier, but President Foster had asked him to attend this meeting as a special advisor. "How does civilian life suit you, Admiral?" Grant asked with a smile. Walker shrugged. "I'm still adjusting. My wife says I keep trying to give orders to our house computer." Both men laughed, but there was an underlying tension. The decisions made today would shape human relations with alien species for generations to come. Are we doing the right thing? Grant asked quietly. We could demand reparations, territorial concessions. We have the leverage. Walker looked out at the stars. That's what the Morians would do. Or the Vex. But then we'd just be replacing one group of bullies with another. Grant nodded slowly. A new type of relationship, then. Not based on fear or dominance. Exactly. That's why we're here. The meeting chamber filled gradually as representatives from 32 former council species took their places around the circular table. The atmosphere was tense, with former enemies now seated side by side out of necessity. Grant took his position at the table, with Walker standing behind him. Across from them sat Archspeaker Telvin, his purple skin now paler, his posture less confident than before. Commander Draz was noticeably absent, replaced by a younger Vex representative. Representatives of the galaxy's independent worlds. Grant began. Thank you for joining us today. 6 months ago, the old order collapsed. The Galactic Council, for all its achievements, had become corrupt at its core. He tapped a control, and holographic images appeared above the table. Secret documents, covert meeting recordings, evidence of centuries of manipulation. It wasn't just humans who were targeted, Grant continued. We found evidence that the Council leadership systematically exploited younger species, stole their technologies, and limited their development. Murmurs spread around the table. Many representatives leaned forward, eyes fixed on the damning evidence. The Lorians were prevented from expanding to 3 habitable worlds in their own system. Grant said, nodding to Representative Mira. The Treskans were denied critical medical technology that could have saved millions during the plague years. The list goes on. Telvin shifted uncomfortably, but remained silent. Today, we propose a new type of interstellar relationship, Grant continued. Not a council where some rule over others, but an alliance of equals, where technology is shared rather than hoarded, where disputes are settled through open negotiation, not secret deals. Grant outlined the proposed structure: rotating leadership, transparent voting, joint scientific missions, and mutual defense pacts that protected all members equally. When he finished, the chamber was silent for a long moment. Then Representative Mira stood. The Lorian Confederation supports this proposal, she said firmly. We have lived too long under the shadow of the ancient empires. One by one, representatives voiced their support. Some were enthusiastic, others cautious. But the momentum was clear. Finally, only Telvin remained silent. All eyes turned to the Morian. Archspeaker Telvin, Grant said. The Morian Empire has much to contribute to a peaceful galaxy, but only as equals, not as rulers. Telvin's 4 eyes blinked slowly. For 10,000 years, the Morians guided the younger races. We maintained peace, prevented wars, ensured stability. At what cost? Walker spoke for the first time. You crushed innovation. You kept species dependent on you. You played favorites and punished those who developed too quickly. Like humans, Telvin acknowledged, you achieved in centuries what took us millennia. It frightened us. The admission seemed to cost the Morian physically. His shoulders slumped. The old council is gone, he said finally. The Morian Empire will join your alliance as equals. We have much to learn about cooperation. Later, as the representatives celebrated the historic agreement, Walker and Lieutenant Reed stood apart from the crowd. It worked, Reed said quietly. I still can't believe it worked. Walker nodded. Humans have always been good at bluffing. Reed looked at him sharply. Sir. Walker smiled slightly. Project Prometheus was real. The stellar manipulation technology works exactly as we demonstrated. But he looked around to ensure no one was listening. We only built 3 devices, not dozens, and they can only affect specific types of stars, under perfect conditions. So it was a bluff. Reed asked, astonished. Not entirely, Walker replied. The research was real, just not as advanced as we implied. The artificial gravity wells, the faster-than-light drones, those worked perfectly. But we couldn't actually trigger supernovas. Reed shook her head in amazement. If they had called our bluff. They wouldn't, Walker said confidently. That's what we understood about them, that they never grasped about us. The Morians and Vex live for thousands of years. They're cautious by nature. They won't risk everything on a single confrontation. He looked out at the gathering, where former enemies now talked cautiously but cordially. Humans, on the other hand, evolved facing constant threats. We're used to taking calculated risks, to improvising solutions. That was our real advantage. Not technology, but thinking differently. Reed considered this. Do you think it will last? This alliance? Walker watched as Grant engaged in animated conversation with representatives from a dozen worlds, his hands moving expressively as he described some new idea. I think it has a chance, he said. For the first time in galactic history, species are meeting as equals, not as rulers and subjects. He turned to Reed with a small smile. And if anyone tries to disrupt that balance, well, they know what happened to the last group that underestimated humans. In the center of the chamber, the holographic display showed the newly designed emblem of the Interstellar Alliance, a circle of stars, each one shining with equal brightness. No longer would some species stand above others. No longer would advancement be feared and punished. A new age had begun, born from betrayal, but founded on hope. And humanity, once targeted for containment, now stood as architects of a more equal galaxy. The greatest victory, as Walker had noted, was the one achieved without destroying their enemies, but by transforming them into partners.